All right, Commissioner, let's start with your background, how you came to be the Commissioner of the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities.
I grew up on a farm in North Georgia. I have a poultry farm with 4 chicken houses. I've been a member of Farm Bureau since I was 18 years old, actually. Grew up in a farming family, a generational farm, and then started out my career in law enforcement. Worked my way through college, working full-time as an investigator in a law enforcement agency. Graduated from college, ended up getting promoted and doing some other things in the agency. Ultimately worked my way up to being the chief deputy for the sheriff's office and going to college down at Columbus State to get a master's in public administration. And from there, started in county manager, being a county manager. Had always had an interest in politics and serving my community in that way. So I ran for the General Assembly and got elected and served 4 terms in the Georgia House of Representatives. And then after that time ended, I became the Forsyth County Manager and was really enjoying that opportunity. While I was still in the General Assembly in 2018, 2019, I created some legislation that ultimately led to the Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission. And the governor appointed me, Governor Kemp at the time, appointed me to chair that commission. So I started working on mental health reform, which led to House Bill 1013 that Speaker David Ralston introduced and passed in the General Assembly. Wasn't looking for the opportunity, but got a call one day from the governor asking me to come down and meet with him. And he asked me if I would come to work for him as the commissioner of this department. So, I actually picked up the phone and called Speaker David Ralston before he passed, asked him his opinion. And he said, Kevin, you only get a few opportunities in life to really make a difference. And this is one of those opportunities. So he encouraged me to consider it. And I guess the rest is history.
So obviously you have for you to work on a bill, like you said, and get the commission formed, and now you're in this role. You seemingly have a passion for this topic. Why? Where did that passion come from, or where did that interest? What made you want to be so involved in this and want to make a difference in this way?
Well, initially, I think my interest and passion for this area came from my time in law enforcement because, in a small community, you go out and you get to know people. You know their families, you know their struggles, you know what works, what doesn't work. And when someone has a severe, persistent mental illness in their family, and you go out over and over again, and you just don't have the resources you need to be able to help that person. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a law enforcement officer who really just has it ingrained in them to be able to solve everybody's problem, to be able to fix every situation. I could go out to a active shooter and I knew exactly what I needed to do, and we would address it and we would move on to the next call. But when it came to mental health, there wasn't easy solutions. So it was frustrating. So when I got elected to the General Assembly, I thought now's my opportunity to try to affect real change in this system. So that's what got my interest. And really, I always say the straw that broke the camel's back was I had received a phone call from an attorney friend of mine who I had known for a number of years, and she had a cousin who was in mental health court in Forsyth County. And she asked me if I would be willing to rent a house. I have owned rental properties to him, and I did. And for 2 years, Joe was a great renter. He paid his rent on time every month, 3 days early every month. But one day after about 2.5 years, I did not get his rent check. So I called him, he didn't answer the phone. 30 days late, I call him, his phone's disconnected. So I called his sister, who I'd gotten to know, and she just broke down in tears about her brother and how he had graduated from mental health court, but then he came off his medication, and she had been reaching out to everybody she knew for help, and no one could help her. Ultimately had to evict Joe from the house, and about a year and a half later, I ran into the attorney cousin and asked about Joe, and she said that after about 6 months, the sister had not saw her brother, so she went to the old home place where they grew up looking for him and found his skeletal remains in a sleeping bag in the woods where they grew up. And I thought, we've got to be better than this as a state. We can do better. So that really sparked me to say, I'm not taking no for an answer. I had tried to create a mental health committee in 2013, and we did some work, but we didn't really affect major change. But I said, this has got to stop. So in 2019, we created the Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission. Speaker David Ralston got behind it with his muscle and his influence, and I think through House Bill 1013, now everyone's talking about it, and now's the time that we're really moving the conversation forward.
So to go back some, my main audience is the agriculture community, and you, like you mentioned, you have a deep connection to agriculture and farming as well, as you were raised on a farm, and come from a farming family. With that being said, how do these two worlds connect? How do these two worlds connect for you, and what kind of, I guess I should say, like what kind of interest do you have in reaching that world, I guess?
It surprises a lot of people when they learn that we have a 3-digit number, calling number, 988, that you can call here in Georgia to get help when you maybe you're contemplating suicide, you're depressed, you need someone to talk to, a family member's in crisis. A disproportionate number of our calls come from rural parts of the state. We also have a higher suicide rate among our farming and agriculture community, and that surprises a lot of people. But for me, having been born in that lifestyle and raised on a farm and having a farm of my own, I know what it's like to have that generational farm where you're looking at 7 generations of people before me have farmed in North Georgia. They've had land in this state. You don't want to be the generation for that to end. There's a whole lot of burdens on the shoulders of our farmers, especially our generational farmers across the state. And then the other thing about being a farmer, if you work for a company, you're getting a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks. You know exactly what you're getting paid. And if it rains or if a storm comes through, you're still getting a paycheck. But as a farmer, there's so many things. You can do the very best job you can, but there's so many things out of our control. And especially among our crop farmers here in the state and North and South Georgia. And there's just burdens that they just don't understand. So we have people silently struggling with their mental health in the farming community. So one of the things as an agency that we've identified agriculture as a priority for us. And we started our first Faith and Farm forum down at Moultrie at the Ag Expo this year, where we brought farmers and the faith community together to start talking about this openly. And it's working. We're seeing farmers openly talk about this and their struggles. The other thing I'll tell you, as a chicken farmer, we have what we call chicken parties. So when we have about 5 local farmers who help each other. So when we get chickens, we go to each other's farms and help dump chickens. And, so one of the things I found is farmers talk to other farmers. So I can hear from my fellow farmer down the road the struggles he's having, what he's facing, whether he's got a bad chicken crop and he's having high mortality and he's concerned about how am I going to make my payments. So talking to them and being a peer to them and being able to help lead them to the services that are available has been helpful. So we have a huge intersection between the agency that I have the honor of running and the farming community we have in this state.
Okay. One big thing I think you're probably well aware, especially coming from a farming background, I know for sure it was kind of ingrained in me, and you don't even realize that it is just the stigma. Farmers, like I said, as you're well aware of, are very independent people. They don't understand. They don't really ask for help. They don't really. Sometimes they probably have never had help. And so, with that being said, it creates a stigma, especially with this topic of. And I think a lot of times it's one of those things where I think they're in denial that maybe they don't even think anything's wrong, and that's usually the first step. Is at first being able to admit something is wrong. Something's stressing me out here, right? With that being said, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that's the case so much? And what would you say to somebody out there that's a farmer and then involved in agriculture that maybe thinking that same thing of like, I don't want to bother anybody, or I don't want to. I don't want to be a burden to somebody that I am dealing with something stressful or I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, as growing up in a farming family, I can never remember my grandfather or my father ever shedding a tear in my entire life. They are bigger than life, strong, tough men that are able to take care of their families. But what happens is they internalize all their struggles and their problems because they've been raised, that's not something you talk about, which creates a whole host of other problems. And that's why I think we have too many farmers taking their own life. And I think what's important is to know there are people and resources you can talk to. And if you're not comfortable talking to a fellow farmer, a faith leader at your church, or a family member, or going to see a professional in your community, you can call 988. And that's the thing I think, and the reason I think we have a disproportionate number of calls coming from rural parts of the state. Number one, there are less resources in rural Georgia. But number two, there's high stigma. Because if I go see the local clinician, and I live in Glasscock County, Georgia, then everybody in town's going to know that I was at the clinician's office. So 988 is anonymous. You can call 988, you can talk to a licensed clinician 24 hours a day. They can help connect you to resources, or it can just be someone to talk to when you really just need to download on somebody. But I think that farmers it's been instilled in them that you're the head of the household, you're the person that all this weight is on your shoulders, and that's a tough burden to carry. But there is help out there. My message to farmers is it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to ask for help, and it doesn't make you a weak person when you reach out to someone.
So I'm going to read you some numbers here, some statistics that were based out of a survey by Mercer and Foundation of Ag, along with I think it's inside the Georgia Rural Health Innovation Center at Mercer. So out of 500 farmers surveyed across Georgia, 49% of them reported being sad or depressed, 47% reported experiencing loneliness, 39% reported feeling hopeless, and 29% thinking of dying by suicide at least once per month. The stress was even worse among first-generation farmers. Terrifying statistics. With that being said, what do you think about those numbers? What goes through your head when you hear those statistics?
Well, they are terrifying numbers, and you can't help but personalize everything because being in a community that has a lot of chicken farmers, and to think that 29% of the people that I know and associate with every day are contemplating suicide at least once a month, that's very concerning. 39 or so percent feeling depressed on a regular basis, that's very concerning. But does it surprise me? No, not really. And also the statistic about first-generation farmers, we were having this conversation earlier this morning. The cost now to get into the farming business is so exorbitant. The stress that many of our farmers face, especially the first-generational farmer, even in the chicken farming business, when it's costing $500,000 plus to build one chicken house, and you're mortgaging that for 30 years, that's a lot of stress. So it doesn't surprise me, but when I personalize it to my own community and my friends and family, it's a terrifying statistic. So I think the more we all can be there for one another and to be open and to help reduce the stigma associated with seeking help, and the more we can promote 988 and that resource. And the other thing too, the University of Georgia has done a terrific job through the Corporate Extension Service, because every community has that extension agent, and our farmers have a good relationship with the extension agent, and they're trained and they're receiving additional resources to try to help the farming community also in our state.
You mentioned 988 a couple of times, and you touched on a couple of the things that it does offer people. Like you said, it's anonymous, they're able to talk to someone. But go through the resources that number can provide to someone that's out there that's feeling overwhelmed or in a for- in a hard mental place, I guess.
Yeah, 988 is more than a phone number. 988 is what I like to say the easy button. So going back to my days in law enforcement, becoming frustrated by not knowing where to turn to get help for individuals, this is that easy button that I wish I had 30 years ago, because you can call 988 as a law enforcement officer, as a family member, as someone who needs help themselves, whatever the case might be. And it may be something as simple as calling 988 to say, I've been depressed lately, I've got a lot of things going on financially, and I need someone I can talk to, and I have a certain type of insurance. They can help connect you to a community-based service. It may be a family member calling to say, my child is in mental health crisis and I need help. 988 can dispatch a mobile crisis team anywhere in the state of Georgia. So they will come and meet you where you are. And I think that's important for people to understand. So it's more than just talking to someone on the phone. If you need the resource, they'll come to you. It's a two-person team with at least one of the individuals being a licensed clinician. They can come and they can get you and help you get the resources that you need. And the other part of the 988 system is a safe place to go. So there's going to be times when someone has a family member who needs a level of care beyond just what can be provided in the community. And in those cases, if they need a crisis center, we have those throughout the state. We're continuing to build those to help stabilize and get someone back into a place where they can be successful. So that's the 988 resource. So the University of Georgia has the Cooperative Extension Service and agents throughout the state, and they're trained and they're there in the community to provide resources also. And I know our farmers in most of our communities have a personal relationship with their agent there in the community. So they're there, and that's an additional resource that are available to farmers.
Okay, a couple more questions for you. For farmers and farm families, even those in rural areas right now that are listening to this and maybe feeling overwhelmed, what words of encouragement would you offer them?
Well, I'd want to let people know that are listening, and if they're overwhelmed, they're discouraged, they need to understand there is help. There's help available. There's people who care. We're a phone call away, a 3-digit phone call away, and to get the help that they need. And it's anonymous. It's not judgmental. It's just about connecting them to the resources that they need to help them get to a better place. And I like to always remind people that it's okay not to be okay. You know, we live in a time in a world where we're judging everything around what we see on social media. So people only post the pictures that have been polished, and they only post the good things going on in their lives. So it's easy for all of us to look at other people and only see the good and not to be able to see the struggles behind the curtain. And we get to thinking we're the only one going through these struggles. We're the only one that's depressed. And that's just not the case. We all struggle with mental health throughout our lives to different degrees. So it's okay not to be okay. Help is available, and we're there waiting on you to call us and to provide whatever level of resources we need to help you get to a better place.
Okay. One last question is there anything that you'd like to say or add that I didn't ask or cover?
I just think that it's important for the farming community to know how much they're appreciated. I know the day and time that we live in, one of the things we heard at the Faith and Farm Forum in Moultrie was, when these farmers that were talking were growing up, they said everyone respected the farmer, everyone loved the farmer. And there's been a shift to some degree from that because so many people don't understand where their food comes from, and they just take those things for granted. But I just want our farming community to know that I appreciate the sacrifices they make each and every day, and there's a lot of us that feel that way, and that we are here ready to stand up and provide the resources they need to be successful because they are the backbone of our state, number one industry in our state, and they're the backbone of our country. And we appreciate the sacrifices they're making every day but they need to understand they're not in it by themselves. We're here to support them.